Welcome to the Real Estate Masters Podcast, where we interview the top names in the real estate game. If you want to grow your real estate business, see more podcasts, or get free resources, go to www.remcommunity.com. The only podcast that allows you to directly connect with the guests and many of the highest level names in the real estate game.
You are in for a treat with our next guest. Do me a favor, subscribe to the podcast, leave us a review, and don't forget to go to remcommunity.com to connect with some of the highest level real estate professionals in the United States through our community and through our high level masterminds. Let's go.
Welcome to today's show. I'm Tony Javier, your host, and we are here with Chris Logan. Chris Logan is a seven-figure wholesaler out of the Tampa Bay area. I'm excited to talk to him about driving for dollars, bird dogging, and some of the great things he's doing to expand his company, not only in Tampa, but to other markets throughout the country. So Chris, welcome to the show. Glad to have you on, man.
Awesome, Tony. Thanks for having me. We're looking forward to sharing some value today.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So you've been crushing it, man. So 5 years in the business and you're expanding very quickly. So tell people how you got started. How did you get into this business and how did you get kind of where you are in 5 years, expanding to different markets and kind of teaching and motivating other people to do what you're doing?
Yeah, great question. So my wife and I, we actually got started in the business, like I said, probably about five or 6 years ago. And when we first got started, it was my wife and I were dating at the time, and I was over at her apartment one day, and I was checking my email, and I saw this banner ad in my email about Robert Kiyosaki coming to Tampa, right? And I was like, man, I just finished reading Rich Dad Poor Dad. I really want to go and meet this guy and check this out. But I told Heather, I was like, I don't want to go by myself. So you want to go with me? And so she said, yes. We went to the event, and it was just kind of like a teaser event to kind of teach you like the basics, the very, very surface level basics about real estate. But it piqued our interest enough to where we signed up for the 3-day course or boot camp after that. And they went over all the different types of strategies you can get started in real estate. And the one that really just made sense for us when they were charting everything out on the board was wholesaling. I was like, man, this makes sense, right? So we signed up for like a coaching program with them. It just went over the very basics of wholesaling, nothing crazy, nothing about marketing, really just how to wholesale. And we just took it and ran with it. And fast forward to today, we're in 6 or 7 different markets in different parts of Florida. And we just expanded in North Carolina, looking to go nationwide.
Awesome, man. So tell us about the expansion. Like, what is your reason for wanting to expand into different markets? So some people they're in one market, they crush their market, they do what they do there, and they stick to their backyard. Virtual wholesaling seems to be the big thing now, people expanding and things of that nature. What's your reason for wanting to do that?
Yeah, so really it was kind of like a mind shift that we had, right? So in the beginning, we had this sort of limiting belief where we felt like we had to stay in our market, and it was going to be very time consuming and costly to go into the markets, that we'd have to hire people in those markets, and then we'd have to fly in to train them, have an office. It was the barrier to entry just seemed like so high, right? But then when we shifted to one of our primary ways of outreaching to sellers is cold calling, right? So that's one of the main ways that we reach out to sellers. We realized that going into another market is really just as simple as pulling a list. And it's learning the market, of course, right? But we have a process that we go through that we've tested in the different markets that we're in, that we can copy and paste in any other market all over the United States. And when we're wholesaling, it just makes sense, right? Because when you're marketing to lists the way we're marketing to them, you go through data fairly quickly. And so you're always needing new data to come in and feed the data machine, right? And so with that being said, when you run out of lists, going into a new market is just such an easy thing to do, because you can just okay, I'm going to pull all my lists that I pulled in these several markets here in that new market, and I'm going to go there, and boom, you have fresh data to call on, and then you can come back and cycle back to the other markets you started with. So it really just helps keep our data fresh, and it allows us to have a larger footprint, because really the way that we go about it, what works in one state works in another state. So it makes it pretty easy to do that.
Yeah. So tell us about the overall process. So you talked about pulling lists, you're talking about cold calling. Um, so that part of it seems fairly simple, right? But once you get into that market, you've got to run comps, you have to put properties under contract. Do you actually look at these properties? Do you put them under contract sight unseen and then wholesale them sight unseen? Like, tell us about the back end of that once you start getting in touch with these sellers.
Yeah, so basically what we do is before we'll enter a new market, we pull a list of cash buyers first, right? And we're marketing those cash buyers. And once we get to like 100 cash buyers, we're like, okay, we have enough to get started and to be dangerous in that market, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so once we have that, then we go and we pull all of our lists for sellers that we use, the same list we use in all of our other markets, and we pull them there. And we pull a list of maybe like the top 6 zip codes in those areas that test. To see like how viable the market's going to be for us, right? And once we pull those 6 zip codes and we get our first property under contract, that's when we go all in. We pull the rest of the zip codes and we start pouring gas on the fire with the marketing. One of the great ways that we are able to do that. So the goal is to enter these markets with low cost marketing strategies. And one of the ways we also do that is building a team of bird dogs in that market too, through a system that we have to be able to build those out and basically have them start bringing us some seller leads so we can start seeing what type of houses are trading in the markets, what do the local areas look like and things like that. And that really gives us a big advantage when we go into those new markets too.
Yeah. So tell us about the bird dogging. We had this conversation in one of my mastermind groups. I think it was like last month. And we talked about utilizing other people and we talked about bird dogs, other investors, wholesalers, agents, and things like that to bring you deals. So tell us about your system. Like, how do you train them? How do you get them to bring you deals? What's your, how do you work with them? Kind of run us through all of that.
Sure. So what we do is we basically have, we first started, driving for dollars and it was just very inefficient. It was so hard to be able to set aside the time to be able to do that, as most real estate investment companies can probably agree with that, right? Whether they're doing it themselves or they're having their people do it regardless. So we feel having bird dogs bring you leads is a much better way to go about doing it. And so when you're going about finding the right bird dogs, it's all about, knowing who the bird dog is, right? Where are they hanging out, right? What do they want most? And what message would really appeal to them to attract them to want to bring a company like yours leads, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to have something that makes sense for them to where they're like, I can see the opportunity, right? So we have a software that we just built out. Or actually, we just started offering it to the general public. It's called Bird Dog Lead Machine. And basically what it is it's a software that automates the entire driving for dollars process. We have a website that basically we post on different types of websites online where we know bird dogs are going to be on, right? So like, for instance, one of the top places that we attract bird dogs is classified ads, such as like Craigslist, things like that, right? Mm-hmm. Because think about why they're on Craigslist. They're on Craigslist because, they're looking for money-making opportunities. They're looking for side gigs, hustles, whatever the case may be, right? They're looking for opportunity. And when we ask ourselves, okay, what do they want most? And we place a message in front of them that gives them an opportunity to be able to make money sending leads to a company like ours, they're all over it. So what they do is they basically opt into our website that educates them on the opportunity. It automatically trains them and everything like that. And then from there, what we typically see is within 24 to 48 hours, they start submitting their first leads. So then our team kind of goes to work calling those leads. We text them, we send them ringless voicemails, whatever we got to do to get them on the phone. That's what we do. And that's how we generate those leads. And to date, we've generated somewhere around 1,500 bird dogs, and I want to say a little over 2,300 property leads.
So tell us about the training part of it. You train them for free. Is that how you do it? You train them for free. So they get your system, you train them, they go and they look for properties. Are they mainly driving for dollars? Is that pretty much 100% of what they're doing, these bird dogs?
Yeah. Yep, that's exactly what they're doing. So we give them a complete training as far as like what to look for, the types of properties we are looking for, the types of properties we're not looking for. So that the image is very clear to them on what exactly is going to be a great fit for our company, right? And from there, they just go to work finding it. And, there's a lot of like psychological things we have built into the training too, that gets them to understand that they're not just going to be able to submit one lead and have money fall from the sky, right? They understand that they got to submit a volume of leads constantly to be able to make sure that they're going to get paid consistently, right? So some of the biggest mistakes I've seen investors make when they hire a bird dog is, number one, they try to train them themselves. So they're investing all this time, energy, and effort into the person, and the person promises them the world, yeah, I'm going to be your best person. I'm going to submit you all these leads, right? And then they kind of fall through, and the real estate investor kind of feels like, dang it, man, I invested all that time in that person, and he didn't work out, right? So that was why we wanted to automate the training, to be able to make it to where like we're not investing time into somebody else until they prove their value and they show that they can bring our company value. Then when they start submitting some leads and we start turning those into deals, we can be like, okay, now we can spend some time together.
No, I like that. And so tell us, do you pay them per lead? Do you pay them per closing? Do you do both? Tell us about the compensation plan there.
Yeah. So basically what we do is we pay them $500 for every lead that results in revenue generated by our company. And we pay them for all the leads they've submitted up to that point. That's the safest way to describe it, basically, right? But at the end of the day, it's whenever we generate revenue as a company from a deal, we pay them $500.
Gotcha. That's cool. I like that. Because if you think about it, it's obviously finding properties with very little, if any, money out of your pocket. Because I mean, it sounds like some of the marketing you're doing with Craigslist is free. They're going out there, they're finding the leads, they're motivated, they're going out there doing the work for you, and then they're getting compensated, and you're only having to pay if you close on the deal, right? Yeah. So how did you come across this system? Is it something you just tried in your backyard, it worked, and now you're just kind of plugging it into different markets?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny how it came about. I wanted to automate the entire process when we first started, right? And I started just refining it, putting one thing in place and testing it year over year, just adding another piece and adding another piece and adding another piece. And then eventually it got to a point where we had this entire system built out. And about 3 years ago, we joined a mastermind. It was the first mastermind we ever joined. And people in the group were having a really big issue with hiring bird dogs. They're like, man, I've set up Zoom meetings for bird dogs to try and streamline the training. I've tried training individually, but these guys are such a drain because like they haven't produced any value for me yet, but they're wanting me to invest all my time. They want to pick my brain, right? And so I said, well, maybe you should try this. This is what we've done. And I showed the system to other people and they're like, that is amazing. Like, would you sell it to me? And I'm like, well, it's kind of like our system. It wasn't something we were going to start selling. And they said, well, what would it take? So we had a conversation, agreed on a price, and we did it. We put together a beta test group of about 15 people when we first started. And man, other people started getting the same results that we were getting. And it wasn't just in Florida they were getting results. They were getting results in all different parts of the country. And so when I started to see it was like a thing where other people were getting the similar results, I had a conversation with my developer, and he's like, you got to offer this at scale for a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
And so that's when the beginning of this year, or towards the end of last year, we put the plan in place to really scale this out and offer it to people on a larger scale. And we released it in February of this year, and I've been getting signups for it. And I mean, it's just an amazing system, and it's giving people back the one thing they care about most, which is their freedom.
That's cool. That's how I launched my TV program. People were asking me about TV, saying, show me TV. And I'm like, whatever. And I just blew them off for a long time. And then I realized people needed it. And so I think out of anything that I've heard about other than my TV program, I think yours is probably really outside the box where there's not many, if anybody, really teaching this or automating the process. So super cool. Yeah. Man, so tell us, I guess, what to expect from... So something in my mind that comes into play. I've tried to train bird dogs. I've done the exact same thing you probably went through and some other people have gone through, where I tried to train them and they just submitted a bunch of crap, and I didn't have time to train them and all that. So it sounds like this is a great system for this. What about charging them? Like, what about charging bird dogs to get into your system so that when they go into the training, they're a much more committed person? even if it's just $100. I don't know. Just talk to me about that. Have you had a lot of, not pushback, but a lot of people sign up for free and then just kind of waste your time and drop out? I mean, just kind of tell us about that part of it.
That's a really interesting concept. And honestly, that might be something we implement. But the whole reason I did it for free in the beginning, where they can sign up and they can get trained for free and everything like that, is because I wanted to be able to do this at scale, right? And what was great about having this whole thing automated was, whether the person joins and they submit leads or they don't submit leads, regardless of what happens, I didn't invest a single second of my time. And that's what I was really trying to protect, was my time, right? Yeah. And so that's kind of like the magic in having it automated, because if they do sign up and they don't submit any leads, it's no sweat off your back. But if they do submit leads, then fantastic. So it's really a volume game. You're trying to sign up as many people as you possibly can to find the handful of people that are going to be your rock stars. For instance, one of my guys has submitted over 1,000 leads, just one. Right. And so right now, I want to say we're averaging about 1.67 leads per bird dog as they come through. So not everybody submits leads. Some people sign up and they never do anything. Right. But again, no sweat off the back. And then some people sign up and they'll submit like 100 leads, 200 leads. Right. And it really comes down to those guys being the needle movers for you. And we found that typically, for once you get a quality bird dog and they start submitting leads that are exactly what you're looking for, it takes about 25 to 35 leads submitted to be able to get a contract.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think it was like, I don't know, at least 10 years ago, it might've been 15 years ago, I tried to train bird dogs, and I say train, I would find bird dogs. I never really trained them. And so I'd be like, go find those properties. And literally there's this one person, after I talked to them, I went into my inbox and they had like an email, like 30 emails with like a link to a listing that was already listed, and you're like, and I'm like, come on. Like, and so I had to develop a little system for them to like analyze the property. I'm like, okay, you need to, or maybe it wasn't even analyze the property. I think I made it harder for them, where I had to, had them put them into a sheet where it was like, put the price, and all these things here. Yeah. So how do you do that? How do you pre-qualify or get them to pre-qualify the lead and send it to you? Or do you even have them do that? Do you just have them send you dilapidated houses where you plug them into a system and then just start mailing them? Tell us how you train them on finding the properties and how to submit good ones.
So there's a series of emails that goes out, and also a guide that they get when they sign up for the opportunity. And it walks them through from A to Z how to get started as a real estate bird dog and how to make consistent income between $500 to $1,000 a month. And so we show them how to get started, why to be a bird dog. And then from there, like, we showed them how to make consistent income with it. And basically what we wanted them to focus on was just one simple thing, because you got to keep in mind, like, they're not getting paid from the leads right away that they submit, right? So the more that you pile on for them to do, the less likely they're actually going to do it, right? And the less people are going to sign up. So we wanted them to be focused on one thing and one thing only, submitting the one address, right? Submitting the address of a property that looks like it fit the criteria that we're looking for. So as real estate investors, I think we can all agree that we're all looking for the same thing. We're looking for distressed properties that we can purchase at a discount and resell for a profit, right? And so, having been in this business for the last 5-6 years, I've come up with a pretty good idea of what real estate investors are looking for and what we see in our marketing on a daily basis, right? And so when we show them, hey, this is what we're looking for, and we also show, hey, this is what we're not looking for. We're not looking for properties of realtor size. We're not looking for properties that are new construction. We're not looking for X, Y, and Z. Like, it makes that picture more clear for them, so they can envision like what it is exactly what we want, right? Because that's the thing. I think real estate investors can make it really complicated. And I did this myself too, right? So real estate investors can make it really complicated for bird dogs, because they will talk to them like they're on the same level, education and real estate wise, right? So we're talking the lingo of a real estate investor that if I was talking to you or you were talking to one of your friends, like, they would totally get it, right? But these guys aren't even boot camp level education. These guys are like pre boot camp, or I don't even know I was interested in real estate. I just want to make money, right? And so we explain it to them from that point of view, so they can understand and get in their mind, even though they're not a real estate investor and they haven't been doing it for years like we have, they can get a clear idea of what we're looking for. And so when they have that, it makes them happier. It makes them less stressed on submitting the wrong types of leads. Because let me tell you, man, nothing frustrates bird dogs more than, as the investor, you telling them, hey, you have this picture in your mind of what they should bring you, but that's not translating over to them. So like they'll send you properties listed on the MLS, like you mentioned, right? I had a guy that used to be he was an inspector for like foreclosures. And so he would go ahead, but all these were on the MLS. And so he would go through and send me a list of like 300 properties. And I'm looking at all these, I'm like, none of these are going to work. They're not the types of properties we're looking for, right? And so I had to really, really work to refine that process until we finally got it dialed in to where nearly every lead someone submits, unless they straight up don't read the training, don't read the guide, they're submitting something we can work with.
That's super cool. I think this is a great way to find leads for a very low cost. So if someone wants to find out about this program, where do they go to take a look at it?
Yeah, so we do a live presentation weekly on the software, and they can go to birddogsecrets.com, and you spell that just like it sounds, birddogsecrets.com, and register for the upcoming web class. And in that, we dive into everything. We talk about why real estate investors would want to leverage bird dogs in their business to do more deals, right? We talk about how to automate the process, and then we go over our 3-step deal conversion system that can turn these leads into great deals more than ever before. So again, go to birddogsecrets.com and you can learn all about it. Very
cool. So tell us about, we'll kind of start wrapping this up here. So tell us about some things you've learned in your business. So just from a general standpoint, what are some things that you feel like other real estate investors should know with lessons you've learned over the last 5 years? You've grown really fast last 5 years. So I'm sure over 5 years, there's a lot of lessons that are learned. What are some lessons that you can share with our listeners when it comes to growing a real estate investing business?
This is an exciting question for me. And I'm really glad you asked it because I'm really passionate about helping people. And if I can help people just cut even a third of the learning curve that I went through and my wife went through to get started in this business, all the better, right? So one of the big mistakes that I made in the very beginning, is my criteria for what was a deal was way too tight, right? I was saying if I can't pick up a deal for at least 47% of market value, then it's not a deal, right? I left a lot of money on the table like that, right? So I would say, don't be so tight with your criteria that you leave money on the table, right? And don't put your own perception on what's a deal and what's not a deal. Because again, you're thinking about it would I buy this, or would this work for me? Or if I was going to put this money into it, would that make sense for me? By you thinking about it like that, again, you're leaving money on the table. You have to ask your buyers, hey, what do you guys want? And then you go find that. So number 2 would be find your buyer first, especially if you're wholesaling. Even if you're rehabbing, you got to think about, before you even buy the property, who am I going to sell this to? What's the ideal avatar of the person that's going to buy this property? Is it a working class family? Is it going to be a family that's maybe they are really into the downtown scene, things that I can mention in my listing to attract the right type of buyer, right? So I would say find your buyer first. That's really big. And that's the biggest mistake that I see wholesalers make is they go out there, they market to sellers, and they're taught in their trainings that if you get a good deal, you'll sell it, which is, there's some truth to that, right? But you can make it a heck of a lot easier on yourself by finding that buyer first, right? And then the last thing that I would say is hire a team, right? So we hired way too slow. I know you're saying we had fast growth, but as entrepreneurs, I feel like we never feel like we grow fast enough, right?
For sure.
We waited way too long to hire. We didn't hire our first person until 2.5 years ago, I want to say. And I would say in this business, when you should hire is probably when you're doing, 2 to 3 deals a month consistently as a wholesaler. If you're a wholesaler, 2 to 3 deals a month consistently, bring on your first person, right? But even before that would be like an acquisition manager. But before that, bring on someone like a VA to handle all the admin tasks, the daily minutia to get you out of the daily grind of downloading lists and uploading lists and all that stuff. that's a big reason that I see wholesalers have a lot of a very difficult time in the beginning when they're starting, is they're spending all their time in the wrong places, right? They're spending their time like, what's the best list to call on, or what's the best, thing to get, right? But at the end of the day, just take action, right? Just have someone else do that stuff, and then you focus on either talking with sellers or fighting to get in front of sellers, and that's it.
Yep, totally agree. I did a podcast with someone the other day, and they said if you do $10 an hour tasks, you're gonna have a $10 bank account, and that's what a lot of people do. And I'm sure you and I catch each other too sometimes. We're like, why are we doing this? Like we should have someone else be doing this too. So obviously we're not perfect, but a lot of investors will do things that even like there's a guy in my mastermind that was he's doing close to 100 deals a year, and he's pulling his own comps. And I'm like, why are you pulling your own comps? And I said, how many properties have you comped in the last year? And he did the number, and it was an astronomical amount. And I go, why don't you have someone else pull the comps, put the property under contract, and then when you get the property under contract, verify the comps. Like chances are if you train someone to do it well. And he's like, oh my God, that's going to save me so much time. So
isn't it so funny, like how you share these things, and then like you see the light bulb go off in their mind, they're like, it is possible.
Oh yeah. It's like the 4-minute mile. Like once someone realized the 4-minute mile was possible, then everybody else did it. Like, just like with business automation, like when I was 10 years in the business. So I've been in business 20 years, 10 years in the business before I realized that you could step out of your business, not have to meet with sellers, not have to meet with contractors. Yeah. And once that light bulb went off, I'm like, oh my God, like I'm there. I already envisioned myself there. And it took me 3 or 4 years to get there, but man, you just don't turn back. So
you learn so much on that journey. And like, if I could tell you how many hours and days, months, probably I sat down trying to figure out how to write the perfect direct mail piece, like it'd be embarrassing to actually share that number. But, but no, yeah. I mean, once you figure out that certain things can be outsourced and you don't have to do business this way, like there is another way. It's just so like liberating what it can do for you. And it gives you back your freedom, your time, and it makes it to where you can take that time and start investing into some things that really count, right? And even invest more in your family free time outside of that too, right? So, I mean, you're right. It's this journey is so funny. And like, no matter how long you do it, there's always something that you can learn. And there's always someone that comes across your way that shares something, and you're like, that is so amazing. Like, why didn't I think of that, right? But that's the power of masterminds, and I'm sure the mastermind you have is awesome, and that's just that's the power of getting around other people and getting those other ideas.
Yeah. Well, good stuff. Well, Shane, thanks for sharing again your system and what you're doing. So again, go to birddogssecrets.com and check it out. I'm actually going to check it out myself because I didn't know about it until we jumped on this. So I'll get my team on this as well, and we'll check it out. So thanks again for your time. If you guys want to get a hold of Chris, anywhere else they can get a hold of you, Chris, besides birddogssecrets.com?
Yeah, sure. They can go ahead and do a couple of different things. They can follow me on Facebook. My username on Facebook, I think, is clogan777. And they can send me an email at chris@bdleadmachine.com. You spell it again, Chris, CHRIS @BD, like bird dog, leadmachine.com.
All right, good stuff. Well, thanks again, Chris, and we'll talk to you soon, man.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening. Now go to www.remcommunity.com to connect with today's guest, see our high-level masterminds, and to get free resources. Don't forget to share this with a friend and leave us a 5-star review. We'll see you on the next episode.